I transmigrated into a wife-chasing redemption romance as the substitute for the heroine's true love. After the heroine, Willow, reunited with the men she truly loved, she was afraid I would keep clinging to her, so she had her best friend seduce me. She even declared that whoever succeeded would get 1 million. And so, Sophia cast her line at me, and I took the bait. Alicia cast her line at me, and I took the bait. Laura cast her line at me, and I still took the bait. There was no helping it. An honest man like me simply couldn't bear to see any woman heartbroken. Later, Willow came back and said she had realized that the person she truly loved was actually me. No, I couldn't take the bait anymore. After all, her best friends didn't agree. Chapter 1. I transmigrated into the role of the substitute for the female lead, Willow's true love, arriving on the very day of their 3rd dating anniversary. At that moment, I was standing outside a private room, holding the gift the original owner had carefully chosen for Willow. In my pocket was an anniversary ring he had spent a long time preparing. That afternoon, Willow had said she wanted to have a small gathering with 3 friends and told the original owner to come find her later. But the original owner had been overjoyed and wanted to surprise Willow. So he got off work early and arrived more than 10 minutes ahead of schedule. Inside the room, Willow and her 3 friends were chatting. Let me tell you something. I'm planning to break up with George. The room instantly fell silent. A few seconds later, Sophia spoke in disbelief. Break up? Aren't you two doing great? It's your anniversary today, too. Willow let out a soft laugh. 3 years, who cares? I was only having fun with George. I never took it seriously. Then she changed the subject, her voice carrying a hint of sweetness. Makoto is back from abroad. I knew who Makoto was. He was Willow's true love. Even after he had been overseas for years, Willow had never stopped thinking about him. Alicia asked curiously. So you want to break up with George because of Makoto? Willow didn't deny it. Yep, Alicia continued. But George treats you so well. For 3 years, he's given you his whole heart, always gone along with what you wanted, always accommodated you. He practically treasures and spoils you. Can you really bear to leave him? Willow scoffed and replied casually. What's there to be reluctant about? I've never loved George. The only reason I agreed to date him in the first place was because he looked somewhat like Makoto. For these past 3 years, from beginning to end, he has been nothing more than Makoto's substitute. Laura's voice was cool and detached. If you don't love him, why not just break up with him directly? Willow sighed as though troubled by the situation, but the mockery in her voice was impossible to hide. I know George too well. He's hopelessly in love with me and has absolutely no boundaries left. If I break up with him now, there's no way he'll accept it. He'll definitely cling to me endlessly. She paused, her tone growing irritated. Makoto just came back. I don't want him getting the wrong idea. Someone asked. So what are you going to do? A calculating note entered Willow's voice. Simple. As long as he does something that betrays me, I can bring up the breakup afterward. Then he won't dare keep bothering me. I'm offering 1 million. The 3 of you, whoever successfully seduces George gets the money. How about it? Her friends immediately cried out in surprise. Why you're really going all out? 1 million. But George seems pretty loyal. Can he even be seduced? He's completely devoted to you. No thanks. I'm not into simps. Willow said. Come on. You're seriously turning down 1 million that's practically being handed to you. Trust me, other people might be hard to win over, but George is the easiest. He's emotionally starved and soft-hearted. If someone takes the initiative to get close to him and treats him just a little nicely, he'll fall for it in no time. After a brief pause, she pretended to be upset. We're friends. Don't tell me you won't even do me this tiny favor. As long as he makes a mistake, I can dump him without any guilt and go back to Makoto. Every word was unbearably cruel. If the original owner had heard this conversation, he would have been heartbroken. But I wasn't the original owner. Not only was I not sad or angry, I almost burst out laughing. Chapter 2. Willow's 3 friends were all stunning in their own unique ways. Sophia had fair skin and was tall, a striking beauty with bold, glamorous features. Alicia was petite and delicate, with an innocent appearance that made her look like a blooming white jasmine flower. Laura was an aloof beauty. She always gave off a cold, distant vibe that seemed to say, keep away. In short, they were all top-tier beauties. I've always been an honest person. I can't bear to see beautiful women disappointed. If any of them tried to pursue me, there was no way I could reject even one of them. I'd have no choice but to accept them all through tears. I knocked on the door, and the conversation inside came to an abrupt stop. After entering, I glanced around the room. Yep, definitely pleasing to the eye. I really had to thank Willow to get rid of me. She was even willing to deploy her entire best friend squad. So I gave her a bright smile. Willow frowned slightly, her tone carrying a hint of smugness. You're that happy to see me? I nodded. Of course I am. Willow secretly exchanged looks with her friends, probably showing off how deeply in love I was with her. I handed the gift to Willow. but I didn't take the ring out of my pocket, although I still needed to keep up appearances with her for a while longer. A ring carried a different meaning. She didn't deserve to wear it. Her friends silently communicated through glances, occasionally looking over at me. I raised an eyebrow and let my gaze sweep across the three beauties sitting opposite me. In the original story, Willow had asked them to seduce the original owner. The three of them had tried every trick imaginable, but the original owner had only Willow in his heart. Faced with them, he remained as unmoved as a monk in deep meditation, not even sparing them an extra glance. Naturally, they all failed. The original owner knew they had been acting under Willow's instructions, and it broke his heart. Meanwhile, Willow and Makoto had been passionately involved with each other. They attended banquets together, traveled together, went to concerts together, and Willow even let Makoto move into her house. The original owner finally couldn't endure it anymore and had a huge argument with Willow. When Willow wanted to break up, he refused to accept it. He bought gifts, apologized repeatedly, and tried everything to make amends, but Willow seemed determined to leave him. After the breakup, the original owner lost all interest in work and drowned his sorrows in alcohol. Then Willow and Makoto were involved in a car accident during a trip and both ended up unconscious in the hospital. Makoto didn't want to take responsibility and immediately fled overseas. Like the ultimate simp, the original owner rushed over to take care of Willow. He looked after her with meticulous devotion and stayed by her side throughout her treatment. After Willow recovered, she threw her arms around him and cried. She claimed she had regretted the breakup ever since it happened and had finally realized that the person she truly loved was him. But by then, the original owner already had a marriage arrangement and was preparing to get married. He told Willow that he no longer wanted to be anyone's substitute and rejected her attempt to reconcile. After that, Willow began desperately trying to win him back. She repeated every romantic thing he had once done for her. She even showed up in a wedding dress the day before his engagement ceremony in an attempt to steal him away. And in the end, the original owner still couldn't let go of Willow. They got their happy ending together. Honestly, there are so many things wrong with that story that I don't even know where to start. Now that I'm here, I'm going to completely rewrite this disgusting plot. In reality, each member of Willow's friend group had her own reason for agreeing to help seduce the original owner. Sophia had a secret crush on him. It was love at first sight, but because he was her friend's boyfriend, she could only bury those feelings deep inside. Alicia had once been rescued by him. She had developed feelings for him because of that. As for Laura, she looked down on Willow from the bottom of her heart and considered her a rival. However, their families were close, and whenever something happened, Willow loved dragging Laura along so she could brag about having a boyfriend who was a simp completely devoted to her. Laura wanted to steal the original owner away, not because she liked him, but simply because she wanted to make Willow miserable. In short, all three women had their own motives, and I was very much looking forward to seeing what the three of them would do next. Chapter 3. While I was wondering which of them would make the first move, Alicia unexpectedly joined my company and became my personal assistant. Pretending to be surprised, I said, "Ali, why is it you?" Alicia smiled. "I'm about to graduate, and I want to gain some work experience." Alicia's family wasn't short on money, and they even owned their own company. Of course, I knew what she was really thinking, so I had no intention of exposing her. I simply nodded and said, "You're Willow's friend. I'll take good care of you." The corners of Alicia's lips lifted slightly. She carefully placed an exquisite box on my desk and said shyly, "Boss, I baked some butter cookies at home this morning. They're not too sweet. Would you like to try them?" Her voice was soft, and her eyes were full of anticipation. As she spoke, she opened the box. The cookies were golden brown and carried a faint buttery aroma. I picked up a cookie and took a bite. Looking up at her, I smiled and praised her. "They're delicious. You're really talented." Alicia's cheeks immediately flushed red, and joy appeared in her eyes. Watching her excited expression, I deliberately slowed my tone and sighed with admiration. "Whoever marries a gentle, capable, and talented woman like you in the future will be incredibly lucky." As soon as the words left my mouth, Alicia's face turned even redder. Suppressing my smile, I casually glanced at my watch. "Ali, I have an important meeting in 10 minutes. Could you help me with my tie?" "Of course," Alicia responded immediately, her voice carrying a trace of excitement. She quickly walked over and reached for the dark blue tie around my neck. Her movements were gentle, and her breathing was soft. The distance between us was very close. I could clearly see her fair, delicate skin and her long, curled eyelashes. While she was concentrating on tying my tie, I lowered my head slightly and, pretending it was accidental, lightly brushed my chin against the top of her soft hair. Alicia instantly froze. Even her hands stopped moving. Her face turned red, and a faint blush spread all the way down her neck. I immediately straightened up and apologized. "Sorry, I didn't mean to bump into you." I almost wanted to laugh. How exactly was such an innocent little flower planning to seduce me? After Alicia finished tying my tie and stepped back, I asked. Do I look good today? Before she could answer, I continued. If you like this outfit, I'll wear it just for you more often. Alicia stared at me. The corners of her lips couldn't help but rise. A few seconds later, she nodded vigorously and quickly, the movement decisive and adorable. Then I'll get back to work. When Alicia turned around and left, she was so flustered that she was practically moving her arms and legs in sync. Watching her retreating figure, I almost burst out laughing. Willow might not be much of a person, but she had done at least one good thing. She had practically delivered this adorable woman right to my doorstep. That same evening, I sent Alicia a message. You did a great job today. Keep it up. I added several cute stickers afterward. I wanted her thinking about me all night. From that day on, my relationship with Alicia progressed rapidly. I took good care of her at work. She gradually stopped being so nervous around me and even started joking with me from time to time. But she still didn't dare take the next step. That continued until the day I brought her with me to attend an evening banquet. Chapter 4. At the banquet where prominent figures from the business world had gathered, I saw Willow and her Makoto. The two had arrived arm in arm. One wore red, the other black, and their outfits complemented each other perfectly. They leaned close together, whispering with smiles on their faces. Anyone who didn't know better would have thought they were the real couple. Alicia stood beside me in a beige evening gown. When she noticed me looking at Willow, she naturally slipped her arm through mine. At that exact moment, Willow looked in our direction. The smile on her face instantly froze, and a layer of frost seemed to settle over her features. I took in every change in her expression and sneered inwardly, though I showed no reaction. A few seconds later, Willow led Makoto straight toward us. With her chin slightly raised, she looked as though she had come to assert her claim and show off her victory. I never expected that you and my best friend would become so close. Her gaze locked onto Alicia's hand wrapped around my arm, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Alicia sensed Willow's hostility and looked displeased as well. Meeting Willow's gaze head-on, she replied sharply. Why we? You're joking. I'm just a personal assistant. Accompanying my boss to a banquet is perfectly normal. As she spoke, her eyes shifted to the hands Willow and Makoto had intertwined. On the other hand, you and Mr. Ito seem awfully close. Someone who didn't know the situation might think you're a couple. Instantly, Willow's expression darkened. Almost by instinct, she let go of Makoto's hand. At that moment, the eyes of the surrounding guests subtly focused on the four of us, making the atmosphere awkward and delicate. Willow narrowed her eyes and turned her attention to me. I knew exactly what she wanted. She wanted me to take her side and criticize Alicia for her. As if she'd ever get that lucky. So I smiled and said, I don't mind the two of you holding hands. I trust that you and Makoto have a purely platonic friendship. The moment those words left my mouth, Willow's expression became even uglier, anger flashing in her eyes. The next second, she abruptly turned around, grabbed Makoto's hand, and strode away without looking back. Only then did Alicia slowly release my arm and turn toward me. In a soft voice, she asked, George, are you really not hurt at all? I knew what was happening. She was starting to feel sorry for me. And once someone starts feeling sorry for you, they're much easier to win over. Putting on the appearance of a devoted lover, I said, I love her, so I'm willing to trust her unconditionally. Even if her heart belongs to someone else, I'd still be willing to wait for her to come back. After hearing my answer, Alicia's brows knitted tightly together. Her voice carried a trace of urgency. But what if she's been lying to you from the very beginning? What if she never had any real feelings for you at all? My expression immediately turned cold. Like someone blinded by love, I pretended to be offended. You're Willow's friend. How can you talk badly about her behind her back? Willow is a wonderful person. She would never lie to me. Looking at her hesitant expression, I decided it was time to ignore her for a few days. You don't need to come to work for now. Come back when you've thought things through. After throwing out those words, I turned around and left without hesitation. Behind me, Alicia's eyes unconsciously reddened. After leaving the banquet hall, I drove to a nearby bar. Just moments ago, I had received a message from Sophia. She said she had drunk too much, was being harassed by someone, and hoped I could come pick her up. Of course, I wasn't going to refuse. Chapter 5. As I walked into the bar, the deafening music and the scent of alcohol hit me at once. My gaze swept across the room, and it didn't take long for me to find Sophia. She was sitting alone in a corner booth, her fair cheeks flushed with a noticeable blush. Standing across from her was a man in a tailored suit. He leaned slightly forward, speaking to her in a low voice without pause. I could see the situation clearly. Sophia's brows were slightly furrowed, her arms were crossed, and every so often, her eyes drifted toward the entrance. Understanding immediately, I couldn't help letting out a quiet chuckle. A hero saving a beauty. Such an old-fashioned setup. Well, since this trap had been prepared specifically for me, there was no reason not to walk right into it. I calmly made my way toward the booth. The man noticed me first. He looked me up and down, his gaze filled with scrutiny and challenge. Ignoring him, I turned to Sophia. How are you? Can you still walk on your own? The man spoke up unhappily. And who are you? I glanced at him indifferently. I'm her boyfriend. Sophia smiled and gently tugged on my hand. Hello, boyfriend. Her voice was soft and sweet from the alcohol. The man looked between Sophia and me several times. Without saying another word, he turned and quickly left. As soon as he was gone, Sophia slumped onto the table. Her long black hair spilled forward, covering most of her profile. I bent down and lightly tapped the tabletop. He's gone. So where to next? Hearing that, she slowly raised her head. Her eyes were unfocused, carrying just the right amount of vulnerability. Take me home. Okay, I nodded calmly. Supporting her weakened body, I led her step by step out of the noisy bar. The entire way, she leaned closely against me, her movements carrying a subtle sense of flirtation. I safely escorted Sophia back to her home. After helping her settle onto the sofa, I poured her a glass of water. If everything's fine, I'll be leaving. Just as I turned around, Sophia suddenly called out to me, George, I'm in a bad mood today. Stay and have another drink with me. Okay, as if afraid I might refuse. She walked to the liquor cabinet, skillfully took out a bottle, and gently placed it on the coffee table. Then she stared at me without blinking. Naturally, I wasn't going to refuse, so I sat down across from her. Sophia didn't say anything. She simply poured 2 glasses of wine, picked one up, and drained it in a single gulp. I glanced at her and followed suit. Sophia poured herself another drink and finished it. Then she looked at me expectantly. With a helpless smile, I drank another glass as well. The room fell silent. Only the sound of our breathing remained. After a long pause, Sophia suddenly looked up and fixed her gaze on me. George, what kind of love do you like? Meeting her intense eyes, I pretended to think seriously for a moment. Love at first sight. The instant those words left my mouth, I clearly saw her eyes brighten. But a moment later, the light faded again, and a trace of loneliness appeared on her face. I fell in love with someone at first sight too. Of course, I already knew that. Still, I deliberately looked curious. Oh, who's that lucky person? She stared directly at me and spoke slowly, one word at a time. You. Before I could respond, she suddenly leaned closer. The warm scent of wine surrounded me. Then, without warning, her soft lips brushed lightly against the corner of my mouth. The contact lasted only a brief moment before she pulled away. Her cheeks were bright red. I won't tell why She paused briefly. You understand what I mean, right? Looking at the young woman before me, whose eyes were filled with hope and anticipation, I wasn't surprised at all. I had taken the bait. As the night deepened, an unmistakably romantic atmosphere settled over the room. Chapter 6. The next morning, the moment I arrived at the office, I saw Alicia. The dark circles under her eyes were obvious. She looked as though she hadn't slept all night. I nodded at her but said nothing. She silently followed behind me and closed the office door. Inside the office, there were only the two of us. Summoning all her courage, Alicia said, George, I know you might think I'm a bad woman, but you once saved me. I don't want to see you get deceived. Then she told me everything about Willow's plan. She even confessed that the reason she had become my assistant was because she had originally intended to pursue me. Finally, she said quietly, George, if you want to scold me, then go ahead. If you want to fire me, I won't complain. But I never wanted to deceive you. The truth is, I like you. Her eyes turned red, as though she were about to cry. Excellent. The little performance I had put on yesterday had clearly worked. She now saw me as a pitiful man who had been completely fooled by Willow. By telling me the truth, she had fully placed herself on my side. I put on a shocked and wounded expression, rubbing my face as I spoke in a hoarse voice. So, that's how it is. I never imagined she would treat me this way. Seeing how devastated I appeared, tears immediately streamed down Alicia's cheeks. At this moment, her heart was filled with guilt and sympathy for me. The next second, Alicia hurried over and, gathering all her courage, wrapped her arms around me. George, don't be sad. If she doesn't appreciate you, that's her loss. You still have me. I won't lie to you, and I'll always treat you well. Putting on a vulnerable expression, I asked. Really? Alicia answered without the slightest hesitation. Standing on tiptoe, she lightly kissed my chin. Good, then I believe you. I gently touched her flushed cheek. Just then, there was a knock on the door. After I told the secretary to come in, she informed me that Willow was downstairs and wanted to see me. Tell her to come up. When Willow entered the office, she looked extremely unhappy. Of course I knew why. Whenever she came looking for the original owner, he would always personally go downstairs to greet her. But I wasn't that simp. The only reason I was still willing to deal with her was because there was still one woman who hadn't tried to pursue me yet. Pretending not to notice the anger on Willow's face, I got straight to the point. What do you need? Willow clearly hadn't expected me to be so cold toward her. Her expression immediately darkened further. She looked around the office. Why don't I see Alicia? I raised an eyebrow. It's working hours. She's busy with her job. Willow walked directly to my desk, her tone carrying an unquestionable authority. I need to talk to you about something. Fire Alicia. I was briefly stunned. Wasn't she the one who had made that bet and encouraged her friends to pursue me? Why was she suddenly trying to back out now? Frowning, I asked. Why? Willow replied casually. Alicia comes from a wealthy family. She doesn't need this job at all. Working here is just a way for her to pass the time. Whether she has this job or not makes no difference to her. I sneered inwardly. It was becoming increasingly clear that Willow was starting to regret her decision. That only made me less likely to agree. Alicia does her job well, and she hasn't made any mistakes. I can't fire her. The moment I finished speaking, Willow's expression visibly darkened. Her voice carried unmistakable displeasure. So you're taking her side now? I shrugged. I'm just stating the facts. She's my employee. After all, I know my employees quite well. Willow's brows knitted tightly together, and her voice rose unconsciously. So what if I insist that you fire her today? Chapter 7. I looked up at her furious face and replied calmly. This is my company. Whether an employee is fired or not depends on company policies and regulations, not personal emotions. Willow's voice was filled with obvious anger. So in your heart, your company and your employees are more important than me, your girlfriend. Instead of taking my side, you're siding with outsiders. I sneered inwardly. At this point, who the outsider really was remained to be seen. Of course I know you're my girlfriend, but don't you think you're being a little petty? After a brief pause, I looked at her stunned expression and continued. Alicia is your friend, your closest friend. She works diligently and has done nothing wrong to you or to the company. Yet you're demanding that I fire her for no reason. Willow, I really misjudged you. In an instant, Willow's expression became extremely ugly. She stared at me in disbelief. She had probably never imagined that one day I would criticize her because of another woman. It took her quite a while to recover from her shock. Her chest rose and fell violently. Clearly furious, glaring at me, she snapped. George, I'm angry. If you want me to forgive you, then fire Alicia and apologize to me. Her attitude was arrogant and commanding. She even threatened me. Otherwise, I'll never speak to you again. I looked at her coldly without the slightest sign of compromise. Unable to save face, Willow shot me one last vicious glare before turning around and storming out. Bang. She slammed the office door shut behind her. A short while later, Alicia came into the office. I told her about Willow's demand that I fire her. Alicia curled her lips. She's jealous because you took me to that banquet yesterday. She glanced at her phone. Willow had sent a message in their group chat. As she spoke, Alicia showed me the screen. Willow had written, George isn't that easy to win over. Maybe we should just forget about this. The corners of Alicia's lips lifted as she quickly typed a response. What do you mean? Don't tell me you're scared now. Sophia replied. Why we? You're not trying to avoid paying more than 1 million, are you? Laura added. What? Regretting it already? Don't want to break up with George anymore? Still refusing to admit anything. Willow responded. Of course not. I just think George loves me so much that you're wasting your time. Alicia laughed loudly and immediately replied. Just wait and see. That more than 1 million is definitely going to be mine. Sophia wrote. Why we? Just focus on your romance with Makoto. Leave George to us. We'll definitely take care of him for you. Laura followed up. Looks like I need to make my move immediately. I'm done chatting. Willow finished with. Fine. Let's see which one of you can actually seduce George. Alicia laughed so hard she could barely contain herself. Turning toward me, she said. George, I know Willow too well. She's definitely regretting everything right now. The moment she finished speaking, Willow's phone call came through. Looking at the name flashing on my screen, I had absolutely no intention of answering. The phone rang for a long time before finally stopping. Then, I received a message from Willow. George, no matter which of my friends contacts you, don't pay attention to them. If I find out you've betrayed me, we're breaking up. Ha. She had gone out of her way to send me a warning. I tossed my phone aside. Alicia and I exchanged a look. Neither of us could stop ourselves from laughing. Chapter 8. I received a call from Laura. She asked to meet me after work. Oh. Was she finally going to start pursuing me too? I was quite looking forward to this meeting. We arranged to meet at a 5-star restaurant. Laura was dressed in a white suit, her hair elegantly pinned up. She looked both capable and graceful. She looked me over, and a faint smile appeared on her usually cold face. I came here today to discuss a business deal. A business deal? I raised an eyebrow in curiosity. Had I guessed wrong? Was this woman not planning to pursue me after all? But she had confidently declared in the group chat that she was going to make her move immediately. Laura nodded. She laid everything out for me, the fact that Willow wanted to break up with me, the plan to offer more than 1 million to whoever could lure me away, and all the details behind it. afraid I might not believe her. She even showed me their chat logs and voice messages. After reading everything, my expression remained unchanged. After all, I had already known the truth, and I had already reeled in 2 fish myself. Seeing how calm I was, Laura looked slightly surprised, but a moment later, understanding dawned on her face, and she smiled. When Laura smiled, her usual coldness disappeared, replaced by a warmth that made people feel at ease. So you already knew. Willow really is an idiot. Her eyes curved into crescents as she laughed, clearly in an excellent mood. It was almost as though Willow's misfortune brought her genuine happiness. Since Laura had been completely straightforward with me, there was no reason for me to hide anything. I did know. Laura looked directly at me. Alicia and Sophia have already made their moves. I can't let them get ahead of me. How about we split the 1 million 50-50? Crossing my arms, I smiled. Aren't you and Willow best friends? Laura scoffed. Who said we're best friends? I honestly don't get it. I've barely ever been nice to her, and I've openly said I dislike her. Yet my family and Willow both insist that we're close. She looked annoyed. We're rivals. I've disliked her since we were kids. When I remained silent, she pressed on. So, what do you think? I don't think I'm any less attractive than Willow. Or are you really just as Willow says, so hopelessly in love with her that you've completely lost your bottom line? No matter what she does, you'll forgive her. The corners of my lips lifted slightly. Of course not. I have no interest in being a simp. Laura nodded seriously. Good. At least you have some sense. What's so great about being a simp? A hopeful look appeared in her eyes. So does that mean you agree? After a moment of consideration, I told her. Actually, you're already 2 steps behind. Alicia and Sophia have already won. Laura's eyes widened in shock. A moment later, she burst into laughter filled with schadenfreude. Willow deserves it. Ha ha ha. I smiled and asked. So what do you think now? I had figured something out. Laura liked straightforward people. With her, being direct was actually the best approach. After thinking for a few seconds, Laura extended her hand toward me. As long as it makes Willow miserable, I don't care. Deal. I shook her hand. The 2 of us enjoyed a pleasant dinner together. When we left the restaurant, Laura asked me to drive her home. We had just gotten into the car when we spotted Willow and Makoto. Willow saw me as well, and she saw Laura sitting beside me. Her face immediately filled with shock, and she instinctively ran toward us. I simply started the car and drove away. Through the rearview mirror, I could see Willow shouting after me. I pretended not to hear a thing. She called me. I didn't answer. She called Laura. Laura didn't answer either. I could easily imagine how furious Willow must have been. As long as she was unhappy, I was happy. Chapter 9. One day, Willow stormed into Sophia's house in a rage. Sophia, those 2 shameless women, Alicia and Laura, stole my boyfriend. The moment she saw me, Alicia, and Laura sitting on the sofa, her voice abruptly stopped. Her shocked gaze swept across the 4 of us one by one. Her expression looked as though it was about to crack apart. When she finally spoke, even her voice was trembling. Explain yourselves. You're my friends, my best friends. You owe me an explanation today. Alicia smiled. Willow, you were the one who told us to pursue George. Whoever succeeded would get 1 million. Sophia continued. As you can see, all 3 of us succeeded. Laura glanced at Willow and asked emotionlessly. So when are you paying us? Willow's face darkened as though water could drip from it. Through gritted teeth, she said. You stole my boyfriend and still expect me to pay you. Keep dreaming. Her chest rose and fell violently, and her voice nearly cracked from anger. You're homewreckers, do you hear me? Shameless homewreckers. Laura scoffed. Willow, you're pathetic. If you can't handle losing, then don't act so arrogant in the first place. Alicia immediately backed her up. Exactly. You were the one who said you wanted to break up with George and pursue your true love. Now you're acting like you've been betrayed. Who are you trying to fool? Sophia calmly took a sip of coffee. Either way, you lost. Willow's eyes widened with fury, but one mouth couldn't win against 3. In the end, she turned her attention to me. George, you're my boyfriend. What do you have to say? I replied. Willow, we're breaking up. Willow's face instantly turned deathly pale. Filled with rage, she shouted. George, what right do you have to break up with me? I don't agree. I raised an eyebrow and laughed mockingly. A breakup isn't a marriage. I don't need your permission. After a brief pause, I added. I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm informing you. George, you cheated on me. You're a scumbag. Willow's face alternated between pale and flushed with anger. Suddenly, she raised her hand as if to slap me. I grabbed her wrist and slapped her across the face instead. Willow, when someone gives you respect, you should know how to respect yourself. Aren't you in love with Makoto? Haven't you been spending all your time with him lately? What right do you have to lecture me about right and wrong? You're trying to play the victim while being guilty yourself. You're disgusting. Holding her cheek, Willow stood frozen in shock. Tears welled up in her eyes. George, You hit me. You actually hit me. Didn't you say you'd love me forever? I glanced at her with contempt and sneered. Forever? Do you really deserve that? Thank goodness I found out before marriage that you're this kind of woman. I should be congratulating myself. From now on, we're strangers. Be with whoever you want. It has nothing to do with me. Willow's face had become as pale as paper. Her entire body swayed as though she could collapse at any moment. Tears fell one after another onto the floor, and she couldn't stop trembling. In frustration, she screamed. You three are unbelievable. How could you like a scumbag like George? Smiling sweetly, Alicia wrapped her arm around mine. I like him willingly. Sophia raised an eyebrow. Looks like you're panicking. Laura cupped my face and kissed me on the cheek, regretting it now. You. Willow pointed at them with a trembling finger. Then her eyes rolled back, and she fainted on the spot. TSK. What bad luck. Sophia called emergency services and had someone take Willow away. As for the rest of us, we happily continued enjoying ourselves. Chapter 10. 1 week later. Willow came looking for me again. She waited downstairs outside my company and tearfully told me she regretted everything. George, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Can you forgive me? Her voice trembled as she sobbed, her tone humble and pleading. I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have made that bet with my friends. I shouldn't have given up on you for the sake of my pride. And I definitely shouldn't have left you behind and gone traveling with Makoto. She grabbed my sleeve desperately, her eyes full of pleading. I've regretted it every day since then. I've reflected on everything. I really can't live without you. What I felt for Makoto was just an old obsession. I've realized I don't love him. I pulled my sleeve away from her with obvious disgust and answered calmly. I don't forgive you. Willow's sobbing abruptly stopped. She raised her head and glared at me angrily. I already apologized. Why won't you forgive me? Do you really have to be this heartless? I was almost amused by her audacity. If I stabbed you and then sincerely apologized afterward, begging for your forgiveness, would you agree? Willow's expression became even uglier. After a moment of silence, she started making accusations again. You used to treat me so well. You always gave in to me and never said a harsh word. The only reason you've become this cold is because you stopped loving me a long time ago. Right. You've probably been involved with them for ages. Turning herself into the victim. She really was skilled at that. Everything was clearly her fault, yet she was trying to place the blame on others. Enough was enough. Without the slightest hesitation, I raised my hand and slapped her. Smack. The crisp sound echoed through the air. Willow's head snapped to the side, and 5 clear finger marks appeared on her cheek. Her eyes widened in disbelief. She couldn't believe I had actually struck her in public. Looking down at her coldly, I said, if you're going to accuse someone, bring evidence. If you keep spreading baseless accusations about me, I don't mind taking legal action and suing you for defamation. For the first time, Willow truly panicked. She finally realized there was absolutely no chance of reconciliation between us. Several emotions flashed across her face. In the end, she gritted her teeth and said, fine, George, you won't forgive me, right? Then I'll marry Makoto. I'll make you regret this for the rest of your life. Hearing that, I nearly laughed. She could marry a dog for all I cared. It wouldn't threaten me in the slightest. Then congratulations. I wish the two of you a lifetime of happiness. Willow trembled with rage. After shooting me one final hateful glare, she turned and ran off in frustration. Not long afterward, I heard that Willow and Makoto had officially registered their marriage. She posted countless wedding updates on social media, seemingly determined to show everyone how happy she was. I didn't attend. Instead, I went traveling with Alicia, Sophia, and Laura. After all, I already knew that Willow's misfortune was just beginning. People eventually face the consequences of their own actions. After we returned from our trip, less than half a month passed before news arrived. Willow had been involved in a serious car accident. She suffered severe injuries. Her spine was damaged, and she completely lost sensation in both legs. The doctors concluded that she would most likely spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. Meanwhile, Makoto was extremely fortunate. He suffered only minor injuries. The moment he learned that Willow would likely be permanently disabled, he immediately emptied their savings, abandoned her, and fled overseas overnight. Later, Willow asked someone to contact me. She wanted to see me one last time. I went. Willow lay in a hospital bed, her face pale as paper. The confidence and beauty she once possessed had long since vanished. When she saw me, and the 3 women who had once been her closest friends standing behind me, her eyes filled with intense hatred and regret. She stared at me and spoke in a hoarse voice. George, are you satisfied now that I've ended up like this? I was genuinely speechless. Your situation wasn't caused by me. Why are you blaming me? She pressed her lips together. A trace of hope appeared in her eyes. You came to see me. Does that mean you still can't let me go? Does that mean you still love me? I was even more speechless. I came here for one reason only, to see how miserable you've become. That's all. Those words completely darkened her expression. She opened her mouth to speak, but I interrupted her first. I already know what you want to ask. You want to know whether I ever loved you, right? I'll give you 3 answers. Never. Loved. I don't love you anymore. Pick whichever one you like. Considering how miserable you are, I'm willing to satisfy your curiosity. Willow immediately became emotional. Her breathing grew rapid. Before she could catch her breath, her eyes rolled back, and she fainted on the spot. My expression remained calm. I reached out and pressed the nurse call button beside her bed. Then, accompanied by the 3 beautiful women at my side, I left the hospital room without looking back. Life afterward was sweet, but I still had my troubles. For example, who was I supposed to spend tonight with?